Welcome back to the Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I'll bring you the final segment of today's program. Lots of fun, though, and I've been looking forward to talking about an interesting topic that our very own Dan Shedd brought to our attention. And Dan is working with the Price of Business here over the next few months, and really great topic, Dan. Appreciate what you brought for us, and I'm asking Sigmund Kramer, my producer, to join us as well. Dan, well, go ahead and introduce the topic for us. I thought it was a great subject.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much for having me on here today. The article that I found in the Houston Chronicle is about a study that was released by a Chicago-based firm stating that $13 billion is lost in productivity due to fantasy football.
What?
Yes, $13 billion is lost in productivity to
$13 billion.
Billion with a B.
Yes.
$13 billion lost in productivity to fantasy football. So I wonder how much productivity is lost to Facebook or to other internet types of sites. Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. That's a good point, because there's a lot more time spent on that. You know, and then I saw a statistic recently that 1/3 of all internet traffic in the United States during peak hours is on Netflix. Well, you know, you got to wonder how many hours they're getting alone of people who probably should be working.
Right.
You know, that earphone that may be music that the boss would tolerate, you know, and that person's looking down at a screen, they're watching one more House of Cards.
And the House of Cards.
Their job has become
a house of cards. It's going to fall down around their ears. Well, you know, fantasy football has really, I mean, look, even before the internet, there were fantasy football leagues going on and people's offices and, you know, the pools and all that kind of stuff. It's been going on for decades, right? So I'm sure that then it was just happening around the water cooler and the break room or wherever. Now it's happening through the computer. But I mean, I think it's amazing that they can quantify. How do they do that? $13 billion. How do they quantify that, Dan?
With a calculator, silly.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, Dan, that's a great question, though. Shockingly, Sigmund had a great question for us. Tell us, you know, what kind of methodologies did they use to come up with that?
Well, the study was calculated by using the average hourly earnings of private company employees and then using the estimated number of fantasy football participants.
Right, but I mean, how do they figure out how much time per day during work hours is being spent doing this versus, you know, I'd like to know how much of that time is being taken away from their family life at home. A lot of angry wives out there. Yeah,
it says in the article that Chicago-based outplacement consultancy Challenger, Frey and Christmas, gotta love that name, which calculated the estimate, emphasized that it fully acknowledges the absurdity of trying to put a firm dollar amount on lost work output resulting from the virtual competition. So,
but they're going to do it anyway.
They're going to do it anyway, but you know the reality is that there is just a whole lot of mayhem going on. It goes on to say, assuming conservatively that each employed participant spends 2 hours a week on fantasy sports while on a job, it works out to $13.4 billion over the course of the 15-week fantasy football schedule. I don't think 2 hours is that outrageous.
No, I was going to say that.
Based on the surveys they did of how many people are interested, 59% of employees say that they are interested in fantasy football.
Oh, now wait a second. 59% of employees across the board. That's BS, man.
No. 18.3 million. I got it. Hold on. Let me read this paragraph for you to argue over. The firm came to its figure using average hourly employee earnings of workers on private non-farm payrolls at $24.45 an hour. The estimated number of employed fantasy sports participants, 81.3 million, assuming a 59% employment rate. Yeah, among the 31 million working-age Americans who participate in fantasy sports. That's probably accurate.
Okay, that's different than saying that 59% of employees are interested in fantasy football.
I misread it.
Yeah, okay.
59% of employees.
I was going to say, because I think that's highly, highly irregular. But you know what? The $13.4 billion seems low, because I guarantee you these guys are spending more than 2 hours out of a week dealing with fantasy football. I would guarantee you that figure is actually low based on those quantifications. Yeah,
I think you're probably right. Great story, Dan Shedd. Thanks for bringing this to our attention.
Yeah, that's awesome, Dan. Boy, that's I hope my boss doesn't hear this.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, we're going to have some information about this over at usdailyreview.com this morning. I want to encourage you to check it out. I love today's program. It was awesome. And do want to mention again, if I failed to mention before, brought to the listener in part by our friends at EfficientWealthManagement.com, SuperInterns.com, and it was a great show. Thanks to you, gentlemen, as well.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Hey, thanks.
When we come back on Monday, we will have much more for you. Do want to remind you, the show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com, where you can find some great new improvements there at that site. And don't forget to check out the great work at usdailyreview.com. While there, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter. Have a great day.